أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Continuing in our discussion and reading of the Manzuma and Al-Adab al-Shar'iyyah al-Sughra, the minor poem on the legislated Islamic etiquette. Last week we stopped at line 129, so we will go from line 130, where the author rahimahullah, Imam Ibn Abdul-Qawwi al-Hanbali rahimahullah, he says, وَكُنْ شَاكِرًا لِلَّهِ وَارْضَى بِقَسْمِهِ تثبت وتزد رزقا وإرغام حسدي. He says, and be grateful to Allah and be pleased with His distribution, i.e. of the provisions, the wealth Allah gives you, the rizq. You will be rewarded for doing so, i.e. if you're grateful, Allah will reward you for the great gratitude. He will increase you in provisions, and He will make the enviers, those who envy you, miserable. Here the author, rahimahullah, he begins and he talks about the importance of being pleased with the bounty of Allah and the rizq Allah has written for us. وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. Allah says in the heavens is your provision and that which Allah has promised you. So here, if we're grateful to Allah for what Allah has provided for us, each one of us has the rizq written for them, distributed, destined, decreed, and will come. And you won't pass away until you receive all of it. By being grateful to Allah and by being pleased with whatever Allah gives you, makes you wealthy or makes you moderate or middle class or poor, whatever Allah gives you, you're pleased with it. The Shaykh says, number one, you get rewarded by Allah for that. Number two, Allah will increase you in your provisions for the gratitude you have come with. Because from the asbab, the means to great increase in your provisions is gratitude. وَإِتَّأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Your Lord has verily proclaimed, if you are grateful to me, I will increase you. Yani here we learn, their asbab, their means to gain provisions, which are hissi, tangible, getting a job interview, asking people for who know any job openings. And then those which are not hissi, they're not physical, but they're immaterial but religious. Yani they're shar'iyan, they're legislated. And from there is making dua and being grateful to Allah. Gratitude is one way to gain more rizq. And then the Shaykh says, and one more thing you also gain for being pleased with what Allah is giving you and being grateful. وَإِرْغَامَ حُسَّدِي. You get to silence or debase or humiliate those who are envious. And those who are hasidun, those who are envious, if you are grateful for whatever you have, a lot or a little or more, you have a lot, you have less, those who are envious of you, they'll become more angry. Because the envious person is the one who wishes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away the provision He's giving you and give it to either themselves or anyone else but you. That's the hasid. وَلَا تَتَمَنَّ مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. This is the hasid. He always wants, not that he gets the rizq you have, but that he wishes Allah takes it from you. A'udhu billah. And one of the means that leads us to lose our provisions is our own ingratitude. So if the hasid is wishing for you to lose your provisions, be grateful to Allah, Allah increase you. So what is it going to do to the envious one then? It's going to make them miserable. The word irgham here literally means to rub someone's nose in the dust. Targhim, yani just to put someone's nose in the dust. What do they say in English? Bite the dust? Something like this, yeah. You put them down. Because the hasid, they can't live right. When they see the mahsood, the one they're envious of, getting what they want. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ حَسَدٍ. You have to ask Allah to protect you from the hasid. But one of the means is be grateful to Allah. Do the right thing. The hasid will only burn more. That's how you deal with the hasid. There's no point of trying to respond. And the reality is the one who's truly envious, instead of wasting their time being envious, وَاسْأَلُ اللَّهِ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Allah says, ask Allah for His bounty. A benefit now, the Shaykh says, وَارْضَى بِقَسْمِهِ. You should be grateful for what Allah has decreed to you or for you. And it reaches into an interesting issue regarding Aqeedah and Tawheed. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees for us something, a Muslim has one of three responses. Yani being pleased with Allah's decree is not always one category. It depends on the maqdur, what's been decreed. So now the Shaykh says you should be pleased pleased with what Allah has given you from whatever He has decreed for you. That's very good. But what are the different ways of approaching Allah's decree? The ulama, like Shaykh Ibn Abdul here, he mentions 3 types. Being pleased with Allah's decree is 3 types. Number 1, the first category, that which you have to be it's obligatory upon you to be pleased with it. The first category is something which Allah decreed, you have to be pleased with it. And that has to do with the ibadat, the wajibat in Islam. The first, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, He obligated prayer on the Muslims. The qadr of Allah, shar'iyyan, legislative decree, Allah decreed 5 times a day. I have to be pleased with it. Wajib. No choice here. Which shows you, some Muslims, they have to be careful if they're angry with the legislative decree of Allah. That's very dangerous. Because to show anger, upset in that which Allah legislated from His knowledge and wisdom, while knowing that you're doing this, is disbelief. Because you're being angry at Allah's actions. But obviously many people who, maybe most of the time they're ignorant, they need to be taught. So that category of things, you have to be pleased with it, no matter what. The second category of what Allah decrees is that which is haram, but it happens anyways, because Allah legislated from His universal will. And we spoke about this. Some things Allah allows to happen in the world, not because He loves it, but because He has wisdom behind it. For example, disbelief, disobedience, somebody killing somebody else, someone doing wrong. I'm not happy with it. I have to be upset with that. You can't say you have to be pleased with that. But you're pleased with the one who decreed it, but not with the action. See the difference? Some people, they get angry at the maqdur. Why are you angry at the Qaadir, the one who decreed it? It's funny, right? You should be angry at what? That which is decreed, that which is bad. Because evil returns back to that which was decreed, not the one who decreed it. And it's a different topic, but this is very important. You're supposed to be angry when someone kills somebody. But not Allah who allowed it. Some people, they get angry at the killer and Allah who allowed the one to kill. A'udhu billah. This shows you they didn't understand why Allah decreed killing in the first place. The last one, which is one we're talking about, being pleased with Allah's decree, which is mustahab. And those are things that happen in everyday life, like sickness, like someone losing their job, like somebody being tested. In this situation like this, Allah decreed it. Is it wajib that I have to be pleased with it? No. The ulama says mustahab. But what's wajib is sabr, patience. It's very important. If Allah decreed something difficult, it's something, everything Allah decrees is good. But for us, it's a test. Sickness, loss of job, death of a loved one. Mustahab, recommended is to be pleased with it. That's a high level of iman. Because how do you be pleased with something which is painful, harmful? You know where it came from. But the average person, we say for them what's necessary is be patient. Wajib is sabr in that category. So the Shaykh, what did he tell us? And we're going to go back to what he mentioned. Provisions. Allah destined for some people to be poor. Yabsutullah rizqa liman yasha wa yaqdir. Right? Some people Allah opens their provisions, others He restricts it. Allah maybe you're feeling that Allah restricted your provision at the present moment, or it's not as much as others. What's your response? Recommended response? Be happy with what Allah gave you. You get a reward for that. That's mustahab, to be pleased with Allah, whatever Allah decreed. I work hard, whatever I get as wealth, alhamdulillah. What is wajib? Sabr, patience. For example, you don't have as much as others, be patient. Patience is wajib. And you have no choice but to be patient. Because Allah decreed it and you can't escape it. Wallahi, this is very powerful to show you that somebody can go through difficult times and they're getting hasanat. The whole trial, the whole test, expiation reward. And another person is going through the same test and they're not getting any extra reward. Maybe they get expiation for their sin and their patience. You see, we want to be at the highest level, not the lower one. So the Shaykh telling us, whatever Allah has given you, وَرْضَى بِقَسْمِهِ, be pleased with it. Which is powerful because it teaches us that human beings have a choice and agency. We have ability to do something about it. And that's why the Muslim's mindset always is to be pleased with Allah's decree. Always be reminded of the hadith, how wondrous that fear of the believer is, because this is how they react. And you find the example of Sahaba and Salaf, when they went through difficult times, they praised Allah. How could they praise Allah in that time? Look, what is it now? What does it mean to you when you see them saying Alhamdulillah and they're sick? Alhamdulillah, they lost their eye, their child. They're saying Alhamdulillah, how? Because what's the level of that? The higher level. Whereas us, just be patient. Hold back all the anger and the bad words and the negative thoughts and just relax. So this is a great encouragement from the author for us to be optimistic and always try to look at the silver lining at things. Right, so the second category, so we repeat again the three categories Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned when it comes to Allah's decree are three. The first one, that which Allah decreed is obligatory that you be pleased with it. Obligatory. And that is like the legislative actions, the salah, the zakat. I have to be happy with it because Allah decreed it with His legislative will. He loves it. And I have to be pleased with it. The second category, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed, but it's bad or evil or wrong, He decreed it for knowledge and wisdom, I have to hate it. For example, somebody killed somebody, I'm not happy with that. But I know Allah decreed it for knowledge and wisdom. Right? So this is important. Some people, we said, they get angry. Yes, you hate the action, but you don't hate the one decreed it because it has knowledge and wisdom. Don't mix the two things. And the last one is that which Allah has decreed of difficulty or tests, which Allah decreed to test us. So it's not something which is bad. And it's not something to do with the ibadat, the legislation of the religion. But it's to test human beings, for life is a test. Like loss of job, wealth, death, all these things that we see. In that case, it's recommended to be pleased with what Allah decreed for you. But it's wajib to be patient. It's making sense? And this is why at the very minimum, when something is decreed and it's difficult, be patient. But teach yourself to be pleased with it, and reminding yourself, where did it come from? Allah. وَمَكَرُوا مَكْرَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. Allah applauds and you applaud, Allah is the best applauders. Then, if I'm angry at something, like for example, I want to gain so much money but I can't. I try but it's not decreed for me. Being upset here is not befitting, I should be patient. But if you look at a different angle, which is that Allah is the one who restricts the provisions, and Allah knows it better for me, I become pleased with it. That's one way to help you. Just remember where it's coming from. If you remember it's from Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never does anything bad. It's always good. We just don't see it. So this is what the Shaykh is telling us. He's encouraging us. Because at the end of the day, many people, right, from this chapter, if they learn to be grateful, it will benefit them in their life. Line number 131. The author, right, so inshallah, before I continue, is wadah for everybody what I mentioned? Is it clear? The three categories, tayyib, inshallah. And I was highlighting about the second category, the difference between the maqdur and the qadir. If something is decreed by Allah, which we can describe as bad, like killing, disobedience, kufr, وَلَا يَرْضَى لِعِبَادِهِ الْكُفْرِ, you have to hate kufr. But the one who decreed that people become kafir, it's Allah, but they chose the kufr. Some people, they get angry at the kufr and the kafir, and Allah who decreed it. Astaghfirullah. See how they're mixed up, their emotions are everywhere. Upset at the maqdur, we're all angry at disbelief. We all don't like it. But why angry at Allah? It means He decreed something bad. Allah's decree is always knowledge and wisdom and good. So you can see sometimes people conflating the two. There's the maqdur and the qadir. The one who's decreeing is Allah. The maqdur is what Allah decreed. And Allah's action of qadr is Allah's actions are beautiful. He is beautiful. And what He decrees, we can describe it sometimes as good or bad. Depends on what it is. Relatively good, relatively bad. But ultimately it's good. This is a big issue. And if we had more time, we'll talk about that in qadr. Because this is where the problem comes. And we talked about it in Mathath al-Usul. People get angry here against the maqdur. And instead of being angry, well, Allah decreed to get, means this being upset with it because it's bad, they get angry at Allah. Subhanallah. But if Allah blessed them with wealth, or they saw something good, they don't thank Allah. So maybe those people, they thank themselves or otherwise. May Allah protect us from those kind of behaviors. Line 131, the Shaykh moves totally towards the clothing again. Just shifts to the clothing issue. He says, وَأَطْوَلُ ذَيْلِ الْمَرْءِ لِلْكَعْبِ وَالنِّسَاءِ بِلَا الْأُزْرِ شِبْرًا أَوْ دِرَاعًا لِتَزْدَدِي. So now the Shaykh talks about the issue of the garments, the clothing, the length of clothing for men and women. He says the longest that the garment of a man can be is up until his ankle. The longest a garment of a man can be is up until his ankles. And for a woman, any women, who don't wear what he called izar. Here he used the word izar, really what he's talking about is like skirts or dresses. And we're going to explain it. For women who don't wear underneath their abaya or jilbab a longer dress, then they should make their abaya or jilbab longer, the ending, the tail of it longer, one hand span or one arm span. Now, what's this issue the Shaykh is talking about? He's talking about the length of clothing for men and women. In Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala differentiated the clothing men and women because in Islam we believe there's difference between men and women. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the men's clothing higher. And that's one way, the easy marker to know a man from a woman. Just from far you can see whose thiyab are raised. That's a man. And the men and the women, their thiyab are lower. And the reason why women, they wear their thiyab, their clothing, longer and dragging on the floor is to cover their awrah, because the feet are from the awrah. Al-Sahih min aqwal ulama. Right? We know some ulama, some madhabs, like the Hanafi madhab, they say the feet are not awrah. But the majority, they don't agree with them there because of the evidence in the Quran and Sunnah. So men, he starts with the men. The men, they should keep their pants or their thobe or the izar or lungi, whatever they're wearing, above the ankles. I'm going to get to that in a second, so I'm not going to go in there in a second. I'm going to talk about in more detail. But for the woman, if she's wearing an abaya or jilbab, which is the outer garment, women usually wear something underneath below. So someone may say, what are the clothing of the woman? Generally, what do women wear? Or if someone asks you, what's the clothing of hijab? Then we can say hijab is comprised of a number of clothing. For example, we have the abaya or jilbab. That's the outer garment. Right? That's the one we see when a woman wears on top when she goes outside. Underneath that, she could have a dir'a, a dress. Or the Shaykh used the word uruz, right? Or izar, or mahalif, like it's a mahafil, it's like a dress. Right? When she wears at home sometimes, right? These women, men and women have dresses at home. They usually wear underneath the abaya. Right? Also from the clothing of the women, the hijab is the niqab. And the gloves, and etc. There are a few others, right? The khimar. These are the clothing of the hijab. You go to the books of fiqh, they talk about it. So what the Shaykh is saying, the woman goes outside. Women in the past, especially in the Arab women he's talking about, so some of them used to wear an abaya, the outer garment, underneath manahif. They have like a dress. So now if you're wearing the abaya on top of the dress, which part is the abaya or the dress that's supposed to cover her feet? Right? This is what he's trying to talk about. He says the Arab before, especially the Arab Bedouin women, if they went outside, not all of them used to wear dresses underneath. So for example, they might be wearing something which is not very long, or they might be wearing pants or shirt, it depends, whatever they're wearing. In that case, the abaya has to be longer to make sure it covers the feet, because there's nothing underneath the abaya that's long. This is what he's talking about. So in the case that a woman is making her abaya longer, or jilbab, how long can it be? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, hadith Salama, hadith Ahmad and Abu Dawud and others, authentic hadith. Salama radiallahu anha asked Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about the dhuyul nisa, which is the tail end of the jilbab, the abaya. How long can it be? Which shows the women, for them to drag their clothing, there's no isbal for women. Isbal is when you keep your garments long, there's no such thing for women. Women, it's good for them to keep their clothing longer so they can cover their feet. So Salama asking, Ya Rasulullah, how much can they keep the tail, the ends trailing? He said, alayhi salatu wasalam, and she asked, and she said, because when a woman walks, her feet is uncovered. Her feet become uncovered. See, this is the haya of the sahabiyat, Allah Mubarak. They're thinking about when they're walking and their feet being uncovered. Because at that time, not like our time maybe, not always are they wearing shoes. Or they're wearing something covered, or maybe they're wearing sandals, sometimes open toe. You see, these are all indications. They didn't want the foot to be uncovered, because Ayat al-Hijab in Surah An-Nisa tells us to cover the feet. So she's worried about this. So Rasulullah said, you can make it one hand span. So after it falls to the floor, a hand span longer. And Salama said, what if it's not enough? He said, then an arm's length, a dira', and nothing more than that. So this was the custom before, for the women to drag. And if you look in the past, European culture, they did the same thing. It was known. You can see it today, as they say, with both words and pictures. This is something that was known in the past. Today, of course, in our society, you flip the script. Women, they wear high, something very high, right? Some pants, they're very high. The men, they wear things low. We've become a free society. Allah musta'an, we'll be upside down. Then for the woman, this is what he was talking about. But let's say a woman wore a jilbab that's not touching the floor, and she's wearing underneath that a dress that's covering her feet. That's okay. As long as the feet are covered, whether it be the one underneath or the one on top, whatever it's covering is covering. So the benefit we take from that hadith Salama is that she was worried about this. This was the concern the Sahabiyat radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. They worried about the modesty. At the end, the Shaykh is telling us, his point is that whatever a woman is wearing, she should ensure that her feet are covered. This is what he's trying to tell us. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us also indication, because more than a dhira' is not necessary, it'd be too much. Now somebody may look at this and say, okay, in that case, what about nowadays? Right, to do with our issue where women don't necessarily wear a jilbab that long. Now maybe very, very few times you find anyone wearing it. And this side of the world, it's almost not very common. Some people even try to make arguments it's not safe. Safety hazard. The women are going to trip. Sahabiyah, they had the same issue. They didn't change it. Look at the hadith ifk. Long hadith. Aisha, when she went out to use the washroom, one of the sahabiyat, she tripped on her jilbab. They had the first one. The Nabi didn't say, go and cut the jilbab. Well, sometimes some people, they bring these kind of things. They say, but it's going to be safety hazard. Sahabiyat, they had the same problem. But haya is more important. But let's say, in the case we have today, that it's not something which people do. Then, can a woman, for example, have her jilbab or abaya covering up until the ankles, and then she wears socks and shoes? So this is what we do over here. In our society, this is what usually. And that is fine. Sahih is fine. Shaykh Uthaymin, one of his fatawa, Marat Muslimah, he says it's permissible for a woman to wear a garment until below her ankles, and he says that if she can cover her feet, that's the key, because the point of the jilbab being long was to cover the feet. Now we wear, as a society, we wear shoes. Everyone wears shoes. So he says she should wear socks and shoes to cover her feet, and the jilbab goes on until the shoes, where the shoes begin, then this is fine. Because the maqsood is met, the intent is met, which the foot is covered, the body is covered. And so there's no one, that's not sinful then. But if the jilbab is very high, or the shoes are open toe, or the socks she's wearing are very, very, very light, obviously it has to be things that we usually wear. So the point is to be careful about this. Covering is the key. If it's covered, alhamdulillah. But if a woman still, beyond that, wants to wear longer, as the Prophet ﷺ allowed, this is the better. Because we always remember the principle, every time the more a woman is concealed, that is better. That's the better. That's always better. But again, alhamdulillah, if you go on the website, we have some points that the ulama mentioned about what is the bare minimum hijab, at the very least. Because in our society today, we need to encourage the hijab, right? Not policing it, encouraging people. Because unfortunately, there is a lot of misconception. So when you find people they don't know, just teach, educate, because a lot of people they don't know. Allah musta'an. But the point Shaykh was trying to mention is that that's for the women. As for the men, it's the exact opposite. And someone will say, now what's the benefit there to differentiate man from woman? If a man's thobe is down there dragging arm length and the woman is doing the same, it's tashbih nisa. Is this copying the woman? These are questions we have to ask. Then now the Shaykh, he gets into the issue of isbal. And he talked about it briefly and he gets back to it again. And he's going to mention it now. Line 132. وأشرف ملبوس إلى النصف ساقه وما تحت كعب فكرهنه وسعدي. He says, and the most honorable position for a man to keep his clothing is halfway at his shins. Halfway at his shins. This is the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam how he used to do it. Alayhi salatu wasalam. And whatever is underneath the ankle, the Shaykh says, is disliked. And we're going to circle this point because this is what we're discussing right now. But you should raise it. Then the author, what he's telling us, a man keeping his pants, his thobe, you name it, below the ankle, is it haram or is it makruh? This is the mas'ala. And we heard it before about this issue, and we probably heard both views. But before we get into the discussion, we need to know Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was his example? لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Where did he keep his thobe? His izar halfway at the shins. And we spoke about it some lessons ago, that someone doing that, it's not libas al-shuhra. It's not showing off. Because the sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But again, we need to keep that in our mind, because some people, they have a wrong impression about Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? They may think, and when they think about him, something else. This is how he used to dress, alayhi salatu. So if you see someone doing that, you can't come and say, what is this person doing? And some people in our community, because it's so far removed from the sunnah, they say, look at these people. Their thiyab are so high. What do you think Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wore? As if they, in their mind, he had some other dress code. So very important we keep realistic, and no one can criticize someone for that. How can you criticize someone for something which is good? But a person should also take into consideration if he's in a place where people don't do that at all, and he's worried about someone, I don't know, attacking him, something, that he can lower it in the halal place. What's the halal boundary you have? From the man's izar can be from the middle, or his thobe or his pants can be from the middle of the shin up until the ankle. That's your window. Anything between that is fine. Sharia, that's allowed. But someone wants to do the better, but it is worry and concern. Some ulama just say then you have to consider that. But in the most cases, if someone goes to the masjid, they wear whatever they want. Us as Muslims should not criticize when we see someone doing the sunnah. Unfortunately, this is a problem as well. We have people who, instead of looking to the best example, they want to tell people what is permissible. In their opinion, as we're going to get to it now, keeping the pants below the ankle is permissible. So why making your life hard? The answer will come, we're not trying to make things hard. We're trying to get closer to the example of Rasulullah. Why are you deterring me? This is the better question. Why are you deterring me from the sunnah? Now, the mas'ala comes, what is the hukum? Because we need to know. And many times people ask about this question, and of recent people have made more issue about it. In terms of, some people, and most people, they're under the impression that it's only makruh. So what is now the issue? So we'll do a tasawwur. We first understand the issue. The ulama, and this is the majority of the ulama, okay? So if you make a chart on one side, jumhur ulama, they say it's makruh, only disliked. And pay attention, we're going to mention what is being said and what's the correct view. Jumhur, the majority. So on one side, they say it's permissible for a man to keep his pants or his thobe or whatever below the ankle. This is from the four madhabs. And other than that, provided that person is not doing out of arrogance. Well, this is the argument. There's no khuyala. There is no arrogance. No kibr. It's jumhur ulama. Some of the minority group of scholars, they hold the second view, which is pants below the ankle, thobe below the ankle, anything below the ankle for a man is haram, with whether or not someone hopes to have the intention of arrogance or not. Haram. And this is position of one opinion from the Hanbali madhab. Right? The Hanbali madhab is more than one opinion, one of their positions. It's also the opinion of Ibn Hazm, Ibn Hajar, Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and many of our contemporary scholars. Shaykh Ibn Baz, Ibn Uthaymin, Al-Albani, many of our contemporary. Then some people, what happens, you find many of the people who ascribe to the madhahib, four madhabs, they take the madhabi position. وَهُ مَكْرُهُ. And if someone doesn't follow that position, maybe many of us might not adhere to any madhab, we might follow the position of the fatwa of ulama. And so what's happened is some people try to raise the point, why are people making difficult while I made it easy? If the majority made it makruh, who are you to come make it haram? As if no one before us who said it's haram. That's the first fallacy in the discussion. We're not the first ones saying it, us as contemporary people following our scholars. That's one. And number two, just because the majority might hold a view, does it mean it's always the correct view? No. Islam, majority is a good sign when it comes to fiqh. If a majority takes a position, but doesn't always mean huwa haqq. It's very important. إِنَّمَا الْعِبْرَةُ الدَّلِيل, right? The evidence is the consideration. Now, so it is a khilafi issue. And we don't want to make it other than what it is, a khilafi issue. Because we're not going to come now and say somebody has an aqidi issue if their pants are below the ankle. Because that then will be going from fiqh and furu' to usul. But we have to also not take it something lightly. Because these things add up. And we'll talk about them another time. How, if someone keeps taking positions because they're easier in secondary issues, they may indicate they have an usuli issue. It's very important. Someone, you see them every time, they find some khilaf, what's the easy one? Okay, I'm with that. And they just go in, so something wrong eventually. But me and you, when we see someone who takes the second view, which is jamhur, our position is what? As we look today, the qawl al-sahih, wallahu a'lam, is that it's haram. But if someone takes another view, what's our responsibility now? It's very important because you find many of the older people, including your family members, maybe they hold that view. Your job is to teach and explain, not to strong-arm someone to change their view, because you can't do that. فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ مُسَيْطِرْ. Sometimes what happens, we come, and they might start it with you and say, why are you doing this? What you do, bring them all the opinions and the reasons why, then they run away. Because when they see the depth of knowledge you have or the certainty, they say, leave him alone. He knows more than us. But if you come and you get angry and start telling them, why are you not doing this? Where is the issue? Let's say they listen to you and they raise their izar or their pants above the ankle. It doesn't mean you won the battle. Because the other things that they didn't understand, which is, how did you arrive at those issues? Why are these issues important? You see, sometimes we're fighting a secondary issue. We forgot why is it important? Because in Islam, we're supposed to submit to the haqq. We're supposed to take the daleel. Every madhab agrees to that. We're also trying to encourage people to better. So you have to be careful. Sometimes, even though it's a very important issue, don't be the kind of person who's debating something and not going anywhere. Or is not actually trying to guide people to the better way. But what is the issue? Because someone may come to you and you have to know your answer. This is important for us as brothers as well and sisters. If someone comes to ask you, what are you doing? It can't be like, I don't know. I don't know. This is what I learned in the masjid. Because tomorrow you're going to change your opinion. Then, let's take a look at the issue. The ulama who say the first view, the jumhur, the majority who say it's makruh, not haram, they say it's only haram if number one, there's kibr, pride, or number two, some of them add, some of them, not all of them, that if there's no need. Right? Some of the ulama, like Imam Safari in the commentary of this poem, he says, bila haja. He says his view, Allahu a'lam, this is the Hanbali position, but he says that if there's a need to do it, then it's also not makruh. مثلا, somebody has a problem with their legs, they want to cover it. So then there's two restrictions. It has to be, it's only haram if it's with pride, and number two, it should be done with a reason. If it's done with kibr, it's haram. If done with no reason, then it's makruh. If with reason, it's mubah. So you can kind of see they have three views. But where are they getting it from? Where do they get this view from? The hadith. So we're going to take a look at how we can understand the hadith. We both have the same hadith. Hadith Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and there's many of them, but we'll mention this case, hadith Abu Hurairah. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, مَا أَسْفَلَ مِنَ كَعْبَيْنِ مِنْ الْإِزَارِ فَفِي النَّارِ. Whatever is below the ka'bayn, the two ankle bones, from the lower garment is in the hellfire. Hadith Al-Bukhari. Clear hadith. There is another hadith that says, لا ينظر الله. Allah will not look at the one مَنْ جَرَّ ثَوْبَهُ خُيَلَاءَ. The one who drags his thobe out of arrogance or pride. Second hadith. This hadith is also in Bukhari Muslim. So you have two hadith. One hadith says, whatever is below the ankles of the garment is in hellfire. Another hadith says, whoever does it out of arrogance, Allah will not look at them. So now we all use the same hadith. The majority and the minority. The majority, they interpret the hadith using the principles of usul fiqh, which is one hadith is unrestricted, which is the first one. مَا أَسْفَلَ مِنَ كَعْبَيْنِ. They take this hadith and they take it to the next one, which is muqayyid, restricting it. Therefore, they combine both and they say, and it's important how usul fiqh is important, because now you can see, even me and you, if we see the four madhabs, they took a position, no one should think in their head, how did the four imams or the great imams take this view? These are imams, right? They're not just like anybody. So how did they get it? This is what they did. They combined both hadith and say, the first hadith I mentioned to you is unrestricted. The second one is restricted. The restricted restricts the general. There. Therefore, whoever lowers their garment out of pride, Allah will not look at him and Allah will put him in hellfire. That's it. See, makes sense? This is their understanding. It's a good argument. Because they say both hadith have come, but one is unrestricted and one is restricted. It's a rule in usul fiqh. But the other group, they have an answer to that. The minority, they have a response to it. And the response is what's concerning us. What we should take away from today's this summary is just the response. How did the minority respond to it? All right, you can say it three ways. All right, so those of us which is alhamdulillah, the qawl is-sahih, and again, the safer view and the closest to the sunnah, of course. Not to keep your pants or your thobe or anything on the ankle or below it. I mean, it's below the ankle. There's an argument, can you keep it equal with the ankle? We're talking below it. Then, what's the answer? First answer, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam clearly said, whoever does this is either going to be in the hellfire, and another one says, Allah will not look at him. I.e., not look at him with a look of pleasure. Allah will be angry with him. Both of these show a punishment, therefore it's wrong. All the scholars, both groups agree, if you do it out of arrogance, you did a major sin. They both agree. Where the difference if you're just doing it regularly. So they say if you just look at the hadith, both hadith are telling us of a punishment. So why are we changing the direct, clear prohibition to makruh? What's the origin, guys? Was something Allah prohibits? If Allah prohibits something, is it makruh or haram? Asl, kal asl. فهو تحريم. That's the first one. You can write that the first thing. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. في القواعد, we know usul fiqh. When the Prophet says don't do something, al-asl huwa tahrim. An-nahi lil-fasad. This is the rule. That's the first answer. That's the easy way of answering it. Okay. Number two, how do we answer what they just said? Right? Okay, this teaches you the great benefit of appreciating the ulama's understanding, but also the right to differ with them based on the same principles. They said you can carry the unrestricted, the restricted onto the unrestricted. حمل المطلق على المقيد. Then the other scholars responded and said the condition is not met to do that. The second group, the minority group, says what you did now by carrying an unrestricted narration and restricting it is true in fiqh. This is true. But in this situation, the conditions are not met, so you can't do it. And what did they say? What do they mean by this? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did he tell us is one punishment for keeping your pants below the ankle, or is it two? Two. The first hadith says if you keep below the ankle, it's in the hellfire. The second one says if you do it out of arrogance, you get Allah will not look at you. So there's two punishments. Therefore, it's two different actions, not one. Therefore, you can't carry one on the other. It's a powerful argument. The other scholars say the first hadith and the second hadith is all the same punishment. If you keep below the ankle, Allah will not look at you and you go to hellfire. They said no. One hadith says Allah will not look at you. Another one says, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put that person in hellfire for doing it, period. Even if there's no arrogance. And how can you solve it? Let me bring you a hadith because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam always knows best. Hadith is found in Muslim, Imam Ahmed, Abu Dawood and others. Hadith of, whose hadith is this? The hadith of Ala ibn Abdul Rahman from his father. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Hadith Sahih, Shaykh Al-Albani authenticated. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the izar of the Muslim should be halfway on the shins. We know this. And then the Prophet said, وَلَا حَرَجَ وَلَا جُنَاحَ. There's no harm if a man keeps his pants or his thobe or his izar from the middle of the shin all the way until the ankles. No harm. مَا كَانَ أَسْفَلَ مِنَ الْكَعْبِينَ فَهُوَ فِي النَّارِ. But if your pants or your thobe goes below the ankles, then it's in hellfire. Then he said, مَنْ جَرَّهُ إِزَارُهُ بَطَرًا لَمْ يَنْظُرُ اللَّهِ إِلَيْهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. See, the Prophet said now he extended the hadith as making levels. This hadith is Abu Dawood and Nisa. You can find it at sunnah.com. What did the Prophet say? Halfway the shins, that's the best. If you don't want to, then you have up until the ankles. If you go beyond that, just below it, Allah will put you in the hellfire. You will be punished. And if you do it in arrogance, Allah will not look at you. So it's not the same. It's different punishments. Is it making sense? So they said that what the majority did of carrying the restricted and unrestricted doesn't apply. Somebody may say, I can't remember this argument because it's a little bit complicated. Maybe I don't know all these usul things. Because the ulama, they mentioned this. Who mentioned this argument right now? Ibn Hajar, Fath al-Bari. We have in the back. Ibn Hajar, in Fath al-Bari, he explained the hadith this way. Okay, I'll bring you an easier way. It's a very simple way. If you don't remember this and it didn't register, simple way. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, did he ever tell us there's such thing as keeping your pants below the ankle and it's not arrogance? Right? Is there such thing? No, it doesn't exist. And now we'll bring a hadith that kind of closes the discussion. قال عليه الصلاة والسلام إنك لست تفعل ذلك خيلا. They use this hadith a lot. Rasul sallallahu Abu Bakr, when his pants used to fall below the ankle sometimes because he was a skinny man, and sometimes he would walk and his izar loosens and it goes down. Abu Bakr asked the Prophet, am I doing something wrong? He said, you're not one of the arrogant. And some say, see, this is proof. But that's not proof because there's another hadith the Prophet said very clearly. And this is a very important point to go back to the hadith Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, وَإِيَّاكَ وَجَرَّ الْإِزَارِ. Beware of putting your pants or your izar below the ankle. فَإِنَّ جَرَّ الْإِزَارِ مِنَ الْمَخِيلَةِ. For putting your pants below the ankle is arrogance, period. For riwayah, all of it is arrogance. Therefore, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us what? Anytime the pants below the ankle, it's arrogance. Whether you intended or you didn't. That's an easier argument. That's a hadith. So if someone were to say now, the first group of scholars, the majority, they understood the two hadith that we mentioned. But how did they factor in the third? It's very hard. You can't understand it. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told one sahabi, put your pants above the ankle, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ makhila. Allah doesn't love those who are arrogant and those who do arrogance. But He said all of it is arrogance. So therefore this conclusion, whatever route you want to use, anybody whose pants are below the ankle, they cannot say, I'm not doing out of arrogance, because the Prophet said it is from arrogance. That's number one. Abu Bakr's example is an exception, because Abu Bakr's pants or his izar used to loosen now and then. You see, somebody tried to say, I'll be like Abu Bakr Siddiq. Abu Bakr Siddiq used to walk outside with it, or did it fall now and then? Where was it used? Mostly time was above the ankle. How come yours is not above the ankle anytime? You're not even following Abu Bakr Siddiq properly. More importantly, some of the scholars were critical of this practice, even from the Ahlul Ilm. And I don't have time, Imam al-Zahabi actually in Sir A'lam Nubala, volume 3, page 234, he actually criticized some of the fuqaha at that time who used to wear their clothes for the scholars and their pants below the ankle. And if someone told them why, they said it's makruh. And then he was criticizing them, said, what are they doing? As an example, and he also explains the hadith. Imam al-Zahabi was a Shafi'i scholar, but also Ahlul Hadith. Any day, what do we take from this, brothers? Discussion about these matters are fiqhi. Inshallah, tomorrow we're going to start studying fiqh, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, and the importance of fiqh and how to study properly, because when you study fiqh properly, then you will understand what's going on. We respect the ulama and the majority. Ala ra's wa ayn, who can say anything about the four madhabs and the imams. But if you take a position of ulama, there is no harm, but you make sure you know what you're taking it. Today, what will happen, somebody will say, I know the haqq is to keep the pants off the ankle. And then slowly someone will chip away at you, saying, but if Imam so-and-so does it, as if that's a proof, right? Imam so-and-so is not a proof, last time I checked. Or they will say, everyone does it except for you. Who do you think you are? And so you're going to remember great names who also take their view, because when in the corner, you need to bring support. Someone says, who agree with you? Hafid ibn Hajar. He's a big Imam. He's big, right? And these are things that help us to also know at the end of the day. And I want to finish with this point and before moving on to our text. It's not as some people sadly believe. Some people believe this is some kind of zealot, right? Extremism. The modern scholars coming and hijacking the fiqh or something. A'udhu billah. These are khilaf that existed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be understanding. And again, it's a khilaf of fiqh. So we respect the different views, but we have all the right to take the stronger view and criticize the weaker view. That's what fiqh is about. But you and I, inshallah, now we understand a little better, just a little bit. And the more we study fiqh, the more these things make more sense. طيب, now the author moves to a less controversial issue, where to keep the sleeves of a Muslim man when he's wearing his thobe. How long should the sleeves be? He says in line 133, وَلِلرُّسْقِ كُمُّ الْمُصْطَفَى فَإِنْ ارْتَخَى تَنَاهَى إِلَى أَقْصَى الْأَصَابِعِ قَدِي. He says the wrists, the sleeves of the chosen one, alayhi salatu wasalam, his wrists of his sleeve, the sleeves of it on his clothing used to rest on his wrists, or used to reach up until the wrist. And if he chose to elongate his sleeve, it would be up until his fingertips. So now the fuqaha, they discussed this, what is the best way to keep your sleeve? Is it good to keep it at the wrist or the finger? What if I go beyond that? It's really long. At the end of the day, there's a few hadith in the subject, almost all of them are weak. Therefore, there's nothing clear-cut on this topic. There's nothing clear-cut. Therefore, we cannot say that it is sunnah with the strength of saying that because the hadith is weak. Hadith Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi, others, Rasulullah used to keep his qamis until his sleeve. It's a hadith weak hadith. Shaykh al-Albani weak, he didn't say hadith da'ifa. Therefore, what can we do? We could say that it's good to do it in the general practice of some of the salaf who used to do it. But as an actual practice, there is no problem if your wrists or your sleeves are longer up until your fingertips. It goes back to the customs of the people. Now, a question may come, if that's the point, there's no real evidence for it. What if I have a very long sleeve? Some people like that on the long sleeves. It used to be a fashion back in the day. Some actually were very critical of this, right? And this practice, especially Ibn Abdul Qaadir. He found this practice was a practice of some of the Sufis. They had very long thobes. Sleeves were so long, he said you can make an entire thobe out of it. How long it was. And he said this is israf, and it's also some innovation they came with. But some people like something very long. When is it haram? When does it become wrong? It only becomes wrong when it's not needed or customarily acceptable. Some cultures may have longer sleeves than others. So if customarily sounds something good, or it is something which is israf, in the case you said very long, it's not necessary. Some of the ulama, they were of the view that at the end of the day, there is something called isbal, right? Something called isbal of, I don't know what this is. Isbal of the sleeves. And what does that mean? You could have isbal of the hair, sorry, not the hair, turban, isbal of the sleeves, isbal of the lower garment. And what does isbal mean? Elongation. So the idea was, if it's not more than the customary practice, more than that's needed, it's isbal. Don't do that. Like nowadays, if you buy a long jack sleeve sweater, you tend to roll it naturally. Like, it's fine. But even up until your fingertips, it's fine. And we're talking, this is for the men. For the women, obviously, they keep it long and to cover their hands. This is actually what they should be doing, or at the very least, until their wrist, because we know the khilaf about the face and the hands. But at the very least, until the wrist. But for the men, up until there, it's your choice. And so if someone does it just because it's something the Salaf did and it's good, inshallah, is not blameworthy, or is not, you get reward, inshallah. But no one can say it's a fixed sunnah per se. It's not a fixed sunnah per se. Now the author, he moves into discussion about men and women's clothing being different and distinct. He says, وَلِلرَّجُلِ كُرَهْ لُبْسِ أُنْثَى وَعَكْسُهُ وَمَا حَضْرُهُ لِلَّعْنِ فِيهِ بِمُعَبَّدِ or بِمُبْعَدِ. He says, it's dislike for men to wear the clothing of women, and the opposite is true. And whatever is prohibited in the text, by the text cursing the doer, then that action should be avoided at all costs. Means, in Islam, men and women cannot wear their clothing of the opposite gender. Haram for men to wear the woman's clothing and a woman to wear man's clothing. And what the ulama, when they say this, what do they mean? Hadith Ibn Abbas, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ مُتَشَبِّهِينَ مِنْ رِجَالِ بِالنِّسَاءِ. Until the end of the hadith. This group of category of people are those who wear clothing specifically of women. Men who wear women's clothing, absolutely women's clothing. Or women who wear men's clothing, specifically men's clothing. It's not allowed in Islam. But what about that which is unisex? Goes for both, it's fine. It's not counted because it's not one over the other. Then, the Shaykh is telling us this because everything we mentioned right now, we saw differentiation. How the women wear their pants or their lower garment, how the men wear the lower garment. How the women, so in Islam we differentiate the genders. And he teaches a benefit, the Shaykh, that whatever you find in the Quran and Sunnah where the person is cursed in the text for doing an action, what does that teach us? If the Prophet said, may Allah curse so-and-so for doing such and such action, what do we learn from this? Huh? Good. It's haram, a major sin. So it's not only haram, it becomes kabir min al-kaba'ir. Why? Because the Prophet is asking to remove the person from the mercy of Allah, which is serious. So therefore, the Shaykh is telling us, if you ever hear that, because Hadith Abbas say, may Allah curse the man who imitate the women, a woman imitate the men, stay far away from it. It's a major sin. And this is a big deal, because we know in our society today, this is the discussion that we have. So Islam would draw, it's a clear lines when it comes to men clothing, women clothing. However, there can be some gray area, depending on a custom. So if someone lives in a custom or a land where there's some customary clothing, which typically speaking, men wouldn't wear that in one culture, but women wear it in this culture, and people are okay with it, then it's allowed to be worn, provided it's worn in the Sharia way. Example, in some cultures, white women, like in Asia, the Shawwal Khamis is worn by men and women. So someone may come and say, can that be hijab shar'i? Some of the ulama say, yes, provided it's very loose and it's worn, and it covers all the body. Because that's the maqsood, the intention of the hijab. Whereas the men, they can wear it loose, but there's above the ankle. You see? Islam is flexible to that degree. But what is not allowed is she wear the way the men wear it, or the way the customs wear it, culturally is worn, and it goes against the legislation. No, that's not acceptable. So this is a benefit to say that when in doubt, consult the culture. Because in Islam we know, urf of the people, muhakkama, right? You can determine, some judgments are determined by culture and customs of people. Similarly, in this discussion, without going too further, is colors. Which colors is for men, which are for women? It depends on the customs. So what's okay over here might not be okay somewhere else. What was okay in the past may not be okay nowadays. Yeah, there's some of these books that sell, if you see them, they're wearing some colors which today wouldn't wear, purplish. Right? In some culture, Arab culture today, this is not known. Or some that sell, if they wore something close to the salmon color. It's not pink necessarily, but something on that end. Maybe here it's fine, but not in some cultures you can't be wearing that. And even here, if someone wore something which is pink as it is, different message will be sent. So you shouldn't do that. You consult what's acceptable. And this is okay in Islam. But this is why sometimes people debate things which are sometimes left to the customs to see. And also the Sharia can also has his view. The author now, in the next set, inshallah, maybe we'll do just one more because we're running out of time. Right? It's almost 9 o'clock. So we'll just do maybe one or 9 or more. Where the author now, he moves into a discussion now about Sarawil. Right, and I think, which line is this? Afwan, I think it's line 134. No, it's the next line. No, Afwan. So line 135. The Shaykh says, وَلَا بَأْسَ فِي اللُّبْسِ السَّرَاوِيلِ سُتْرَةً أَتَمَّ مِنَ التَّأْزِيرِ فَالْبَسْهُ وَاقْتَدِي. That there is no harm in wearing pants, and they are more concealing than for a man to wear an izar, so you should wear them. What he's telling us here is that when it comes to what you wear underneath your thobe, i.e. the man, a man has a choice when he's wearing his thobe, right, his garment, thobe, or even without a thobe in this nowadays, what can you wear underneath it? So what the Shaykh is saying is that if you're wearing a thobe, underneath it you have a choice. You can wear an izar or lungi, right, just a wrap, right, waist wrapper, or you can wear the short pants. Right? So the different types. Sarawil or sarawilat are what we know as, right, the garments or the pants that were underneath. And there's a lughawi understanding, and nowadays it's kind of like a description as well. So these are the things that nowadays you find. Sometimes when you go to the Middle East, you find them they're wearing, and many of us probably have those kind of lighter kind of pants, so the white pants in different colors. But obviously they don't fit the description of the sarawil, the pants in the Arabic books, because those are too light and kind of tight. They're the ones they used to wear more loose. We're going to get to that in a second. But this, what's better, to wear something like this, pants under your thobe, or izar? And just like a waist wrapper. So now the ulama, some of them say it's better to wear the pants because they're more concealing. This is what Ibn Abdul-Qawwi is trying to tell us. Because if you sit down with your thobe and you're wearing pants, you're lying down, no one can see your awrah. But if you wear the izar and you sit down and lie down, right? The other certain ahkam you have to apply. You can't sit like that. You get the point? So that's the whole point he's trying to talk about. And what we take from this, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged us to wear both. Hadith Abu Umama. One day he said, radiyallahu anhu, we said, قُلْنَا يَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ إِنَّ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ يَسْتَرْوَلُونَ وَلَا يَأْتَزِرُونَ. Ya Rasulullah, they said, the Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, they wear pants underneath their garments, but they don't wear the izar. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, تَسَرْوَلُوا وَاتَّزِرُوا وَخَافُوا أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. Wear the izar, wear the pants, and be different than them. Allahu Akbar. To that degree, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us. What does that mean? Some of the ulama understood it to mean, underneath your thobe, wear pants sometimes. Other times, wear izar. Some ulama said, wear pants and izar. And some, like Imam said, no, it's not both, just one or the other. So the Hanbalis lean towards, if you're going to wear something, the pants are better. And we know other cultures, the izar is better. Right? So you can see, some cultures they don't know right? Like Northeast Africa, Yemen, Indonesia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all those, they wear the izar a lot. And in other places, you find pants. Either way, benefit hadith jayyid. Hadith Mustahmid is sound with jayyid. Sahih hadith. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam telling us about this. Alright, so imagine. Now, someone might say, okay, sarawilat, are they pantaloon, right, we wear today? Because some of you are probably thinking it's the same. And when we say pants today, we're talking khakis, jeans. That's not sarawil. We're talking about time of Sahaba and Salaf. That's different. But are they the same? This is a question that comes. Because now, and obviously it's outside of our scope and our time, somebody may say, what's the hukum on wearing that in the first place? Right? Somebody actually may ask this question. Because some of the ulama hold a view, not some of our bigger ulama, they say it's haram to wear pants. I'm sure some of you have come across that view before. And other amongst them say it's halal. And obviously we don't have time to go into both views and what's the evidence and how they understood. But some would argue then, what the pants we wear now and the sarawil the Prophet wore the same. And so Sham al-Mashaykh says it's not the same. So I'll give you just an example, because it's important to understand the khilaf. It's khilaf. Right? So someone wears pants and believes halal, is no sin on them. Because some big ulama hold this view, right? Najid Daima, Shaykh Ibn Baz. But other scholars, Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah, Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah, and others, they say the pants is not good enough without a thobe on top. It doesn't cover the awrah properly. So what is the difference then? So Shaykh Abdul Abbad, hafidhullah, in Medina, right, the Muhaddith in Medina, hafidhullah, they asked him, what's the difference between, or is the pants mentioned in the hadith equivalent to the pants that we know nowadays? What's the difference? That's a good question, because someone will say that if we have a hadith that says wear the pants, and I'm wearing pants, how come I'm not wearing pants? Like the way that the hadith says. So he says the difference is, the pants that we have nowadays, huwa min jinsi sarawil. It's from a type, it's a type of, or something, it's a category or a type underneath the category of pants at the time of Sahaba. But what's the difference is the ones that people wear nowadays are tight. The ones that we wear now are actually tighter than the one that we used to wear. Some of the brothers, they believe when they go to Egypt and others, they get the spacious one. Burhan, brother, he knows probably better. The one that they wear in Egypt and other brothers they have, it's very spacious. That kind of pant is very different than what we have. Then, he said, number one, the ones that we know, the regular pants are tight. They show the size of the awrah, the legs, especially the thighs, because thighs the awrah. The second thing, they also separate clearly, right? Because again, it's a very high crotch kind of pants, right? So the feet are clear. Also, he says that essentially the pants that we have now, it's not like the ones before, but the ones in the past were spacious. So they don't show the person's legs and the shape of their thighs. So that's one of the differences. So based on these differences, what's the point of mentioning this? Some of the ulama who hold this view, in summary, they don't believe that the pants that we wear nowadays without a thobe or shawar khamis on top, it doesn't do the job. Just if somebody's praying, they think it's just too tight. Salah counts, but it's tight. Well, other ulama say, no, if you're wearing spacious pants, then it's fine. And there's, again, it's a khilaf ulama, so you be aware of it. Because again, some people, they don't know there's two views. They might never heard before the second view. And they might say, subhanAllah, I didn't even know. Because also there has other issues come out of it, right? What is the ruling on wearing it? When can you wear it, etc. But the point is, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is telling us, at the very least, to wear the sarawil when we are wearing our thiyab. And the safest thing to do always is that when you're praying salah especially, because even if someone were to say that, where is the biggest issue amongst this issue? Within this issue is wearing the pants in salah. Outside is one, but in the salah more. Because some would say that you're not covering your awrah, or shart min shurut al-salah, right? And others will say then, and that's why sometimes you see some brothers when they pray salah, they have a thobe. Right? Or in some other countries, they have the izar. It's hanging, people just take it and they wear it. This is why. But again, we don't have time to go into both views, but now you understand a little bit of the, just a gist of some of the ideas. But the point, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Sahaba, they did wear their spacious pants, right? Now the Shaykh, when he mentioned this, the point he was trying to tell us wasn't that the legality of wearing it, he was just trying to address the issue of, what do you wear underneath your thobe? So this is good to know now, that if you're going to wear underneath your thobe something, sometimes you wear izar, sometimes you wear pants, maybe some people at home they wear the izar, because if they go outside, they don't feel comfortable wearing it, could fall. Right? Maybe you're not good at tying it, Allahu Alam, so you maybe want to wear the pants, stay safe. Or sometimes when you're home, and this is good to do both. Sometimes, and this again has been hasanat and khair deen teaches. Imagine Islam teaches us these things because someone will say, why is there consideration? It goes back to the sitting. Because remember, we said Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was lying down once in the masjid. Another time, he said, don't do that. Or one time he taught us how to sit in the masjid. What's the difference now? It goes back to what you're wearing. If you're wearing izar and you're just lying down one foot over the other, maybe you're going to expose some of your awrah. But if you're wearing pants, then there's no problem. There's another type of pants which are very short, like kind of shorts, or like more like underwear, called tuban. Tuban more like underwear kind of. All that is fine. The Shaykh, he adds to this one more thing, which is that this was what Ibrahim alayhi salam used to do, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Again, wallahu a'lam, where he got that from, we have to investigate more. But I think that's enough, inshallah, for today, line 136. And inshallah, we'll go from there, talking about some of the other issues, right? Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. If anyone has any questions on this, we'll take it. One question says, are half niqabs allowed, or does it have to cover the forehead and the eyebrows as well? So when it comes to the niqab, the ulama, they mention the niqab is supposed to cover, right, what the meaning of the niqab is covering the woman's face. And from that understanding is the eyebrows, traditionally speaking. So for those reasons, many of the ulama, they say that it should, definition of the niqab, or the burqu', which covers the eyebrows and the nose and the mouth. Only the eyes are exposed. So now some people, some of the sisters, when they wear the niqab, it only covers from the nose down, the eyebrows are exposed. So Ibn Abu Ubaid, rahimahullah, and other salaf, when they made ta'arif of the niqab, they mention it covers the eyebrows. So that's why you have the full one that covers only the eyes are shown. That's the point. Right? If those who take the opinion about the niqab and want to wear it, they should wear it this way. Now sometimes somebody, there could be different views, wallahu a'lam, I don't have them on top of my head. But with that being said, some might have a different opinion. So it's very good to investigate those issues in detail so you can do what's most pleasing to Allah. But many ulama say when they say niqab, it means that which covers the face and only exposes the eyes, not the eyebrows or the forehead. Allahu a'lam. Any other ones? Any other questions? Yes.
I think it came up wearing the clothes at the level of the ankle, not below and not above.
So some of the ulama, they mention, I believe we translated something, we have to go find it, about keeping your pants just on at level. So if the ankle bone's here, you have it just on it. So some of the ulama said that technically it's not below, so it's you could get away with it. But at the same time, it's very dubious. So دع ما يريبك لا ما يريبك. Leave that which is doubtful, that which is not doubtful. It's very cutting close. And also the benefit, what is meant by keeping it below the ankle is when you're standing, not when you're sitting. Somebody said when I go in ruku', it goes below the ankle. That's of course, you're done making ruku'. We're talking when you're standing. That's the ibrah, when you're standing. Right? So that's the thing. So some scholars did say if it's equal, it's pardonable or it's questionable. But the point is to keep above is safer, and you don't want to be in the gray areas. Wallahu a'lam. Yes.
Is it true that when Umar al-Khattab, when he was dying and he saw the young boy with a long garment, that he basically prohibited him and told him to cut it?
Yes, this hadith in Bukhari. Umar al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu on his deathbed, when he was bleeding after being stabbed in Salat al-Fajr, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, then he, in this state of pain, agony, gained consciousness, he saw a young man who came visit him. Right, as they realized when they tried to diagnose what happened to him, they realized that it's a fatal wound. They gave him some milk to drink, and then the milk came right out the wound. It means for them that is a deep puncture. They most likely wouldn't make it. So while in that situation, everyone's visiting, we told this one young man who came visit him, "Oh young man, raise your izar. It's more pleasing to your Lord to clean it for your thawb." And this is in this position. Imagine, Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu in this position, last words, not literally the last words, but his last moment of life, he's worried about these things because they're serious issues. And that's why it's a benefit to also that we have husn tarbiyah. If we see someone doing this, how can we address it? Right? One approach would be to go and scold them, and that doesn't necessarily work, right? You see someone, you just run them away. It's not going to work. What you do is you want to encourage them. I'll bring you a narration, beautiful. Abdullah ibn Umar, Ibn Umar, Umar's son, for Bukhari, a Muslim, one day he had his pants below the ankle. And Rasul saw him and said, "Irfa' izarak in kunta Abdullah." If you're really Abdullah, put your pants above the ankle. And Abdullah didn't know. He said, "How far, Ya Rasulullah?" And they told him the half of the shin, etc. That was Ibn Umar when he was young. Years later, Ibn Umar became older. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. This is narration. This is a different narration. Now Muslim Imam Ahmad, Sahih. One day he saw a young man doing what he was doing, pants below the ankle. So Ibn Umar told him, "Come here." And he came to him and said, "What is the Abu Abdul Rahman?" He said, "Do you want to see Allah's face Yawm al-Qiyamah?" He said, "Of course, why not?" He said, "I heard Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam my own ears say it." He mentioned the hadith. This is the kind of da'wah. Look what he did. He didn't tell him, "Look, what you're doing is bad." Targhib wa tarheeb. What's the natija? That man never, after that day, the day he died, his pants were above the ankle. From that day, that talk, until the day he died, his pants were above the ankle. You see, a good da'wah, how far it goes. Imagine, because he made targhib. Everyone wants to see Allah's face Yawm al-Qiyamah. Why are we going to gray areas? Even if someone didn't know, we'll talk more tomorrow, muqallid, blind follower madhab, he has the right to blind follow Imam. But then the question now comes, imagine he heard this hadith. Now he has a moral responsibility to try his best to adhere to the hadith of Rasulullah وَخُرُوجْ مِنْ khilaf أَوْلَى. Always getting out of khilaf is better. But look at that beautiful. That's a beautiful way to deal with it. You see someone, encourage them. There's no point in coming here and just yelling at them. And even at home with our siblings, it's not going to benefit. We tell them what to do. We tell them why we should do it and how to become better. Inshallah, this way you soften their hearts. So it's a beautiful hadith, and it teaches us as well that the Sahaba took it as something very important. Hatta someone will come, and I didn't mention it, Safarini, rahimahullah, Imam Safarini, he mentioned that if there's a haja, like someone has a leg issue, skin issue, he can keep his pants below the ankle. This is the position he mentioned. If we have a need, it's not makruh anymore. But that opinion is not also strong by another hadith. Shamsuddeen al-Tirmidhi, and Muslim Ahmad, I believe, and others, Sahih hadith. One day Rasul saw a man with his pants below the ankle. And he said to him, lift your izar above your ankles. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm bow-legged. Or, if I have a defect in my legs, I want to cover it. So people, they don't make fun of me. He said, put your pants above the ankle. Kulli khalqillahi hasan. All of Allah's creation is beautiful. No excuse. SubhanAllah. Look at the Prophet telling him. He's encouraging him. All of us are made beautiful. Fi ahsan taqweem. And there's not an excuse. And the man put it up above the ankle because the Nabi isn't teaching him the real thing. So this is important because today someone may come and say, and this and that. Look what Rasul says. If it wasn't a big deal, and this is very important investigation, if the Rasul didn't take a serious issue, how many Sahaba did he advise on this issue alone? I just told you 3 now at least, and there's others. He talked each one of them about it. One Sahabi, another hadith, another Sahabi was walking in his pants above the ankle. He said to him, put your pants above the ankle. And he said, I turned around, I see it's Rasul. Then I look at his izar, halfway the shins and mine down there. So I saw where his is and where mine is. And he told me, أَفَمَا لَكَ فِي أُسْوَةٍ. Don't you have a role model in me? And that's a good word to tell people. When someone says this and that, isn't there a good example of Rasul? Look at the rhetorical question. Of course, Allah says, right, in Surah Ahzab, why did he say that? The Sahabi immediately followed that. Some of the Sahaba will use that wording. Aisha once, others, when someone disputed, say, isn't Rasulullah an example for us? Khalas, game over now. How are we going to say anything after? Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that's it. What did he do, we're going to do. And it's really important that we try our best to be kind and caring because we know it's a khilaf. And many people, they don't know these issues. So we have to have mercy and be patient. Wallahu a'lam. Many other questions, brothers? Yes?
You mentioned about the long sleeves, so you mentioned turn them back. And there's a thing about folding the clothing with the blue line. Can you explain it?
So the issue now is that we know that if somebody's sleeves are very long, essentially what they do is they fold it, they roll it. Right? Now we have an issue, a mas'ala in fiqh. When they come to the prayer, are you allowed to have any part of your garments rolled, whether it be your sleeves or your pants? Because if your pants are below your ankles, what you're going to do is you're going to roll them up before the salah, after salah, or at all time. Or you come from work and your sleeves are rolled. Many of the ulama hold the view that you can't do that. And they rely upon the hadith Ibn Abbas, both groups. Hadith Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiyallahu ta'ala fi Sahih Muslim, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, and I've been commanded not to hold or bunch up or gather my clothing in salah. It's hadith in Sahih Muslim. This is the hadith where the discussion is. So some of the scholars, many of them are contemporary scholars, and some of the earlier scholars, they took the hadith of Ibn Abbas and the interpretation of Imam al-Nawawi. Right? This is important. Where did they get the understanding? Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, who commented in saying, included in this is rolling up the sleeves and the pants, because this is what the meaning of the word, kuf, and the whole back. And this is the interpretation. You find many of the scholars, when they talk about the issue, they bring this. But we find other scholars at his time and after who didn't agree with that interpretation. And I think we posted this issue like this on the website. Al-Mardaawi, we posted research on this. Other scholars, they interpret the meaning of gathering clothing to mean, you know when people go for ruku' and before they go to ruku' they gather their qamis and pants, I don't know what they're doing. But usually they gather it together. This is the hadith what it's talking about. Imam al-Iraqi and others, they interpret the hadith. When you go in for ruku', from ruku' you see some people gather their thobe together and then they go. This is exactly the prohibition, they say. And why is it important to know that there's different opinion understanding of the hadith? Therefore, it's not a black and white. Right? Once I tried to explain this to somebody, but they were not really having it. Right? Because maybe they didn't know there's other scholars' opinions. But the idea is because people think there's only interpretation there. It's not the only one. So therefore, depending on what interpretation you take, some scholars say that the word holding back, literally Arabic, means to hold back. A roll up is a type of holding back. But the problem with this is that there are other examples we can find that somebody may keep their pants above the ankle or their sleeves are rolled back, but is that the intent? Because it says fis salah, in the salah. And if the prohibition was prohibition, it should be also outside of it too. But it's in the salah. So the question is, what are you doing in the salah? And again, I think it's on the website, we can read more, but that's where the difference is. So at the end of the day, those who see this to be the meaning, it's no problem. And those who say otherwise, it's fine. Because another mas'ala comes out of this, was like somebody, let's say their pants are below the ankle. The salah time comes, they walk into the masjid. Now they have one of two choices. pray with the pants below the ankle, which is serious business. Because many people don't know, but keep praying with the pants below the ankle. There are actually some athar of the Sahaba that Allah want to answer dua, want anything. So Shaykh Al-Ma'an authenticates some of these narrations. Some people don't know that. It's not a hadith. It's an athar ibn Mas'ud. And so that's the one hand. Another hand is, you fall into the hadith of Abbas, the interpretation. So what do? You see, now that's sometimes someone will say, I don't know. Because most people, you see the lay person before Salah, he's rolling his pants of the ankle. On one side, he shouldn't do it before Salah, or in our heart we're like, he should always do it. On the second side, it's better do it now than not do it. But if you told him, don't do it because you're not allowed, then he's going to pray like this. So there's another issue. But that's a secondary issue. But now you understand where the differences come. Same hadith, different understanding. That teaches you then, ikhwan and akhawat, when it comes to fiqh, it's not about the adillah, it's about the dalala. Right? It's not about the evidence, it's about understanding the evidence. Tomorrow, inshallah, when we do the muqaddimah on Umd al-Fiqh, we're going to talk about some of these issues. Because it's very important then to build these foundations to help us approach the issues of fiqh and now know when there's difference between where is it coming from. Inshallah, I think this is enough. I think we've taken a long time. I apologize. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.